I'm live on YouTube if you want to join us. If you want to tune in, click the link in my bio. Hey, it's Mark the F Hits the MSW coach, and I am live again on YouTube to do two more macro social work career sessions. I asked for some volunteers yesterday, and I had two wonderful social workers volunteer. And so we are here to assist them as much as possible to for whatever the biggest issue is that they're having in their career currently. And so for those who are new around these parts, I occasionally do these live career coaching sessions for a few different reasons. The first is so you can see in real time what it looks like, what it feels like to be coached, career coached specifically, because a lot of people don't know what that is, what it entails. They've never seen it done. And then two, as an opportunity for you to maybe pick up something that can help you in your own career. So we're going to get started. Hey, Aisha, how are you? I'm so excited that you took up my offer. Introduce yourself to the people watching the replay and watching live, and give us an overview of what you do currently as a social worker and what you've done in the past.
Yeah. So thank you again for having me. I'm super, super excited. I am Aisha Robinson. I am a MSW. I graduated with my master's in social work in 2022. And so I've had direct practice. I've been doing direct practice for almost 3 years. Love social work. Couldn't see myself doing anything else. So I am just really honored to be a part of this profession. Right now, I am the lead women's services social worker at a hospital. So I'm a medical social worker. I fall under medical social work where I do things like discharge planning, care coordination. I am over three maternal health units. So that includes the NICU, labor and delivery, and postpartum. So all of those are kind of intertwined into each other, but I am the kind of go-to person for all things social wise. So I do a lot of coordination with things like adoption cases, surrogacy cases. I'm involved really heavy with collaborating with the Department of Children and Family Services when I have infants who may test positive for substances, mothers who struggle with substance abuse, um, coordinating foster care placement, helping educate parents on when they discharge home, instituting support services in the home, such as early steps or healthy start. Um, I also provide brief counseling for our NICU families. So I have those families for months at a time. The longest family I've had has probably been about right around 3 months, where I had a 25-weeker born. And one thing about medical social work, especially in the NICU, when the baby becomes your patient, the family becomes your patient. And so all things social wise, I kind of help walk patients through those processes um, at the hospital. And so that's a little bit about what I do.
I love that. Okay, so you are in charge of a lot. So I was writing some notes. I'm sure I will have follow-up questions to what you shared. What's the biggest issue that you are experiencing currently in your career that you wanted to discuss tonight?
Yeah, so currently in my career, like I said, I've been doing for almost 3 years. And while I love what I do, I feel like I have a lot of frustration on the direct practice level because I feel like I'm already working within a system that is broken, in a system that doesn't really cater toward a lot of the needs that these mothers have that I encounter on the ground level. And so I feel like I'm at a point in my career, like especially when I started this position, it was certain things I was like, why do they do it this way? Or why is this a thing? Why is this a mandate? Why is this a policy? For example, at my particular hospital, one of the policies is when a mother does not have prenatal care, that's an automatic Department of Children and Family Services report. And while I could see while that may be a thing, I think that that really blankets everybody under one umbrella that I don't think is fair because you have so many other social factors that prevent mothers from getting prenatal care. And so I different things like that, like different policies, different mandates, I just feel like I have a lot of frustration with. Um and I want to work more at a macro level because I want to influence those policies. I want to be able to analyze the effectiveness of those policies. Are we doing what it actually says that we're doing? Is this actually helpful? Um, and I feel like with my particular organization that I work for, there's like this cap, like mentally, they just have this cap over their heads. And it's just like, I'm like, are we moving forward? I feel like I think one of the things that they feel, or one of the things I've sensed and picked up on is that this is the way it's always been done. So this is the way we're just going to continue to do it. Which even in my personal life, I just do not like that mindset because I think if something's not working, as generations change and as needs change, I think those things should change as well. And so I want to be able to just sit in a space where I can create initiatives and create insight, and I think also having that experience and using the leverage of having direct practice and being the lead women's services social worker, I think I can use that to my advantage because I have been on the ground level with these families. So I think, yeah, that's the frustration that I'm having currently.
And just to be clear, you were in the career planning retreat that I just had?
I
Yeah.
was.
Okay, I love it. Okay. Um, I could tell that you also picked up a lot from those 3 days together because the way you articulated your problem, I love it. Aisha, you learned something over the weekend. We were together. If you missed the career planning retreat, you missed an opportunity to learn really the first critical step in making the pivot to macro level work, which is creating a plan. I also introduced them to my career clarity framework and had them do some homework over a few days. I love it. Look at you retaining what you learned. Okay. So have you identified any specific jobs where you're like, that is the thing that I want to do? Let me back up. Have you applied to anything? Let's start there.
I have not applied to anything yet. I've just been trying, especially after the retreat, I've just been trying to get my feet wet as far as looking for those positions. So what I've done is I've started looking at like organizations that cater toward the maternal health population on a national level or like a global level. So organizations like the March of Dimes, organizations that, and even like when I go on those organizations page, if I don't see positions that intrigue me, I will look at who those, you know how like on LinkedIn, it'll be like pages suggested or like who they follow. I'll also look at those because sometimes their missions are aligned and see if I can find positions that align with what I want to do. So I haven't applied to anything yet, but I've just been trying to get a survey to land to see what's out there. Are there organizations that are doing this work? And how can I, pivot from what I'm doing now to that type of work?
Okay, most definitely. I love it. So, you are on to the next step, but we kind of want to tiptoe a little bit back to the clarity piece. And you may
Okay.
have said it, so excuse me if you have to repeat it again. You talked about having frustrations around the mandates that are a result of the policies that are in place. Is there a specific issue, like, or policy that you're more focused on than others?
Um, I don't know if this would count as a policy, but I think when I kind of think about where does a lot of my frustration come from, it comes from um I feel that I don't know how to, make this sound better than what it is, but I feel like when it comes to the healthcare system, there is a lot of systemic racism that influences uh child protective services reporting. I think in that in that lane, there's a lack of cultural competency, trauma-informed care, really assessing what's going on and not just jumping toward making a report, doing too much too soon, I guess. And I've seen that so much at my hospital that I have created trainings. I have trained help some of the nurses and some of the doctors on how to really assess for those things. And while I've done it at my hospital, I want to now like branch it out and maybe even do trainings for other hospitals, or create training material for hospitals that include trauma-informed care, or educate people on how to approach certain situations in a way that does not involve the Department of Children and Family Services. And while I feel like that's a needed entity, right? I think the healthcare system is just so haphazard in how we just go about it that we don't understand that this is an actual family with actual stories. And that is a very invasive experience because they come into the room after you had a baby and they run down all these questions. They have to go see your children at the home. They do a background check and all these things, when I don't think that's necessarily needed if at a ground level we can actually just institute the resources that they need that we feel may have initiated the report in the first place. Does that make sense? I hope I'm
It
making
does. It makes 100% sense. A lot of sense. So I'm gonna go even deeper.
okay.
So with these parents, the mothers, I'm gonna say mothers, with these mothers, because you taught about them needing holistic, like holistic services to get to a place where they can provide what they need to provide based on this criteria for being a fit parent. I'm gonna just say that I don't know nothing about child welfare. What's the running theme and what the mothers are lacking? Is it housing? Is it transportation? Is it food?
Um, the first word that came to mind when you asked that question is support. Um, I think financial support. I feel even on emotional level, emotional support. I think even when I'm thinking like before they get to the hospital and they deliver the baby, I'm thinking about OBGYN offices. You know, what are these conversations like in these offices? When they get prenatal care, how are they being emotionally supported through this process that empowers them to move on the resources that they may get, or the resources that they may need. And so while one of my passions or one of my goals is to um dive into that policy analysis and initiative type work, another one of my desires is to make sure or empower healthcare workers to support these populations, because they're going to encounter a doctor, a baby is going to need to be delivered, they're going to encounter a nurse, and that one encounter can really color your postpartum experience. It really can. And so I feel like if at that level they get the support that they need and these healthcare professionals are competent on things like trauma-informed care and cultural competency, that will impact and empower that mother to feel supported.
Okay, that's helpful. So I have 3 things that I want you to think about. And these are not necessarily questions or things that you may come up with an initial response during our conversation tonight, but they're really more things that you need to be reflecting on over a series of a few weeks. So my approach to getting clear around where you should go in macro level work is thinking about what is the quickest conduit to change.
Okay.
What that means is what is the easiest way to like start making small changes to fix the root cause issues. So The reason I was asking you about what is the theme and the holistic supports that you see them lacking is to get an understanding of what's the root cause issue of why they are not fully set up
Mhm.
to be, new moms. I'm just putting this in my words. So you named financial support.
Mhm.
You taught about emotional support, but then you also in the beginning taught about systemic racism. So I'm assuming these mothers are mothers that look like me. Okay, so they're Black mothers. So they're being impacted by these other systems that are deeply like ingrained. So for me, workforce development, they're probably working low wage, low quality, low paying jobs that then impedes their ability to get safe, affordable housing, safe, reliable, affordable child, not affordable, safe, reliable child care, to get a car seat, to be this, all, it's just a whole trickle down effect, right? So you would need to answer the question around who do you think is the responsible system for addressing this issue? And then in addition to that, what stakeholder audience or group would be the most receptive to what you are proposing? So when we look at their basic needs out access, the financial, the housing, transportation, all of the things, you could focus on jobs in with different national organizations that touch on those things specifically for women and children or children and families, because there are national organizations that work on creating more opportunities and barriers for mothers around good quality jobs. There are national organizations that's working around helping mothers get access to financial support, supplemental programs. I believe that's the name of them. Or you could focus your effort and say, no, I believe that hospitals are
Mhm.
responsible for this, or better yet, what you named, healthcare practitioners, specifically OBGYNs, or specifically during the prenatal phase of a mother's care in the healthcare system. And when you're doing that, yes, you can focus on training the practitioners,
Mhm.
right? But that's more like micro level. You would need
Okay.
to blow it out a little bit more to the macro level, and your focus as a on a macro level would be to speak with healthcare system CEOs. So the CEO of the HCA healthcare system, all of the hospitals, all of the HCAs in the country, you will work with a national organization where you're talking with that person and the CEO of the other major hospitals around the fact that you should have these built-in programs for when mothers enter your healthcare system from the stage of prenatal care. And you should be providing them with wraparound services, and you're providing them with guidance on how to do that. You're not designing a program, but you're providing them with guidance or policies. Guidance and policies are two different things. Now, you can work with a regulatory entity where you're developing these policies that these people are then responsible for following in the delivery of their services, just like HEDIS measures. Medical social workers, y'all have to do all of that stuff with HEDIS and bed count. All of that is a flow down of a policy that's been put into place. Now, when it comes to giving them guidance, that's on another area of macro level work. That's why I always say macro level work is more than just policy. That's what they call technical assistance. That's what I used to do in Washington, D.C. And that's where you are on a micro level, you would be training the practitioners on this trauma informed care. But on a macro level, you would be providing technical assistance to the CEOs of the healthcare systems. And what technical assistance, think of it as like curating learning. It's where you're giving them examples of cities and other hospitals, maybe even other countries that are doing this work right. You're putting them in contact with like other subject matter experts that can give them insight on best ways to approach this work. You're not telling them how to do it, but you're giving them the requisite knowledge, the information they need to be able to engage in this level of work in their system. And
Okay.
so this is why I say, like, you have to get clear on what do you believe is the quickest conduit to change. And so for me, mine was mayors, right? Yes, I could have stayed in that workforce development system and worked with my clients one-on-one. That's a lot. My quickest conduit of change is go to DC and work with the leaders and advocate there for the creation of these career pathways and on-ramps. So listening to that, oh, and then I also wanted to say this. When you're dealing with the practitioners, right?
Mhm.
Yes, you can inform practice, but you also got to build in like, how hard do you want to work for this change? Because yeah, you can create a policy and it's just something to think about, but you're also going to have to be doing an added layer where you're working to address their implicit bias about the thing, right? And so that's a lot. Is that a hill you want to, you
That's
know?
so true. Because sometimes I'll be at work, like, and I'll plug in, like, when I'm doing a consult, and I'm like, this did not need to be a DCF report. Like, I could have came and did a consult, and we didn't even have to go through this. I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like, this is not a battle I want to fight today, because you're right. There are so many underlying implicit unconscious biases that is so deeply rooted that it can't be instantaneously changed, but there is a capacity that is required over time to really provide that insight and education, which you're right, I didn't think about that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put in that much work, honestly, not on a direct practice level. So what you're saying, like, I feel like fireworks are going off in my head, because I'm like, okay, I didn't think about it, like when you were talking about how, educating practitioners and healthcare workers is still kind of on that micro meso level, but to really expand your mind and work in that technical assistance area, I feel like that's connecting for me, as far as I think that's more of what I'm saying that I want to do.
That. And then also what I was just thinking about, because there's many different aspects to macro level work, right? Inside of my program, the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, I have an exhaustive list of like the different scopes of work that you can do on a macro level. But also maybe you decide, and this is what you do during your reflection process. I have a systemized process that I take my coaching clients go through, but for the sake of this conversation, maybe you want to serve as a watchdog where you work with the national organization that provides guidance to states on how to evaluate these programs and provide oversight and creating oversight and compliance standards. Because one of the major reasons why I got interested in macro work before I even knew it was called macro work was, as a workforce development career counselor / case manager, I was asking all of the questions around the policy that mandates our program, which is a federal policy, says this. But why are we doing this on the local level? And that's when a colleague of mine who was a public administration major, and she loved to just read policies for fun. That's when she taught me about the fact that policy interpretation is not universal, because she would pull data from the neighboring region and she would tell me how the other region, the people were getting all these job placements and it can stay in this one type of job search activity. And I would be like, well, why in our region, our people can only stay there for 2 weeks and they're there for 3 months? And she was like, because that's how they interpreted the policy. And I was like, well, okay, so is there not a standard way to interpret the policy? And she was like, no. And so I say that to say, like, maybe you decide that your role that you want to take on, and this is your second P, your purpose. Maybe how you want to do your day-to-day work is you take on a role of being a watchdog where you're working in these oversight and compliance organizations that provide guidance to states, guidance to healthcare systems on how to implement this thing.
Okay.
So as many different avenues you can go, but you really got to start with getting a good clarity on what is your quickest conduit for change, who you think that would be, who is the responsible party for
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But I love that career planner cheat did you good. But I remember you also sharing out the frustrations you were having about your work and you articulating that very well at the start of that weekend. Job well done. Continue to get frustrated.
Yes, I feel like at first when I first started I was like, I hate coming to this job and getting frustrated. These people are making me upset. But then I was like, you know, I feel like sometimes our frustration really is supposed to, that's why we have that frustration because it's really supposed to push us to do the work that we're frustrated about because we have a particular eye for it. So now I'm not like condemning my frustration, but I'm like, okay, like I want to be able to do something about it. Um,
Yes,
and that's why I wanted to. I've been like binge watching your content and listening to your podcast and your YouTube videos, and you be cranking out content like this, and I'll be like, I know that's right, but it really helps me because even being able to hear things multiple times helps me retain it and pushes me toward the action. And so I really appreciate this. This was good.
yes, yes. Continue to get mad. Every day you get in there, you should be mad and pissed off until you go get where you need to be.
Yeah.
And continue to keep your finger on the pulse of being able to identify the root cause issues of what you're seeing in your day-to-day work. Push past the practitioners,
Okay.
push past the policy.
Mhm.
What is really happening here?
Okay.
What other like systems are intersecting with these issues that you see? Because those are also potential avenues for jobs.
Okay.
Because what I always tell people when working with me, I can't talk about nobody else. You don't have to be married to what you did on the micro level to get the macro job you want. So just because you worked with these mothers in this healthcare system capacity, you may really decide, looking at the rest of the 3 Ps framework, you really are passionate about financial access. And then you could pivot into a macro job that's working around increasing financial self-sufficiency for children, for mothers and their children or mothers and their families through a specific avenue of like finance.
Okay.
Okay, so job well done, Aisha. Thank you so much for volunteering.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Okay, if you have a few moments, stay on until I finish with our next person so we can all recap after we're done. But if not, I'll be in contact. But thank you so much for volunteering.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna unping you. And so next we are going to have Henry. Hold on, Henry. I just realized I never hit record it on YouTube, but I like to record it on my end. And so next we have another social worker who volunteered to come on tonight as my special guest. If you're white, people are coming in on Instagram. I see people on YouTube and people watch the replay. But Henry, I love when Henry pops into anything that I have because he is a male in social work and they are they are rare on this side of my world. I know they are an abundance out in the world doing wonderful work, but when it comes to this work that I do, I love to see Henry and his smiling face. So Henry, introduce yourself to the people. Give them an overview of what you do as a social worker and what you've done in the past.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Yeah, my name is Henry. Um, I do currently my work right now. I work for HUD, um, the Housing Urban Development. I'm my agency's contracted through them, and I am the permanent supportive housing case manager for my youth program, ages 18 through 24. And so I initially take in um youth who experience chronic homelessness and who's have a um, document of disability. That's essentially how one of the requirements to get into permanent supportive housing, which is different than rapid rehousing. Um, and so my day to day basis is it's like night and day. Um, every day is another episode. Um, right now I'm dealing with like a CPS case. Another one, I'm dealing with a single mother who just had a miscarriage, and uh, yeah. So from that CPS case and just a typical child care and just addressing a lot of barriers that will prevent them from maintaining their housing because a lot of the demographics that we serve, they've never had an apartment or a place to live in a day of their life until they got into my program. And so I'm initially planting a lot of seeds and supporting them in ways that will help them access towards stability, whether if it's something simple as addressing their food insecurity. Um, Sometimes I drop off bus passes and everything, and then I do a lot of their housing inspections once a month, and then like their monthly reports, so that we can just see like a financial progression throughout the time and their duration in my program. And there's really no hard exit other than you aging out. That's also um, why my program is kind of uh tedious because it's hard for me to sometimes track progression. Whereas like there's different programs where there's a 2 year deadline. You're only in this for 2 years. You're only in this for 6 years. So you could be 18, get into my program, and you could be living the time of your life until you're 24. So it's hard in that sense of me um I guess instilling that motivational seed to get them to see what life is after we're gone, right? And you know, I have a lot of the mothers on my caseload. They're they're probably like my best um clients just because of the fact that they know that they have a whole lot to lose. And a lot of my male clients who don't have children and stuff, typical young men stay at home playing video games, all that jazz, and they end up in relationships where the women are taking care of them, which is a whole nother different topic. But anyhow, yeah, so I address a whole bunch of their personal lives, and I'm like trying to think of solutions on how they can be able to um make some type of improvement within, even if it's like a month, 90 days. Okay, now we're done. Okay, let's see what it looks like for 9 months. In the next 9 months, what you about to do. So yeah, so I'm constantly um building relationships with property managers, um workforce developers, and I'm always looking into ways how um I can merge the engagement with my program into outside resources, so that way they're less dependent on us when it's time for them to quote unquote graduate from our program. And um I don't have an MSW. I'm not a traditional social worker. I actually went to San Francisco State University. I actually got my bachelor's in city regional planning. So I've was studying about gentrification and housing development and transportation development and all that stuff. But life made its turn, and I ended up doing case management. In the beginning, I was working with neurodivergent adults, and then now it's with um, chronically homeless youth. So this is a whole nother different beast.
Okay, so I love that. And honestly, I didn't know that you were working on your bachelor's in city regional planning.
Yeah, I
That
got it in 2019.
so that explains your interest in just a little context for people. I've had conversations with Henry before. He's a superstar, just like Aisha, just like everybody that I talked to. Um, but that explains like your intrigue with city level work. And I can see why you went into housing, but your heart still is where this bachelor's degree was. And this is, I want to say this before I jump into the rest. What I've seen over the last 5 years is that what you all really want to do is rooted in whatever you got your bachelor's degree in. You just didn't know how to get a job in the thing. So even with my coaching clients who I help pivot into macro jobs, 90% of the jobs they got is directly connected to some type of training they got as in their bachelor's degree program. Right? But they just didn't know how to get a job in that thing. Maybe they needed to go on and get an additional degree and they were like, no, I don't want to do that. A lot of them wanted to become psychiatrists. I had people who wanted to be writers, but for whatever reason they couldn't make a like real go of the thing. And so then they end up becoming social workers. So I say that to say that's helpful that you shared your bachelor's degree background. I'm gonna ask this
Found a
before.
way to marry those two worlds together, as you can tell.
But you're still a big picture person though, and you're doing micro level work. You're supposed to be in the city offices developing these regional strategic plans around these programs and services to get people into housing.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. To be honest, like I had an upper hand versus my other colleagues because the agency is in similar proximity to the neighborhood that I live in and had close relationships with, and me being a child of immigrants and living in Section 8 housing for like 25 years of my life and taking the bus to these neighborhoods and where my office is at, like, you know what I mean? Like, really, it wasn't my my education that helped me. Like, it was the frosting, but I had the cake. I just had to learn how to present it in a way that would make it look aesthetically appealing, so I could look a little bit more attractive. And then, you know, um, right now I'm at this point where it's like, like I've been outside, just trying to connect. I even spoke at the Capitol about like like a $7-8 million fund last year that was potentially going to get cut and stuff. So it was just like I'm outside for a little too long. Now I'm just trying to be inside and just work smarter and stuff because like this is fun. This keeps me rooted and everything. But doing these kind of work in nonprofit agencies, you start to see the not so great sides, and it'll make you question your love for it if that makes any sense. And I'm at a point right now where like I'm always asking myself existential questions if this is um something that is going to be not only sustainable for me, but also something that I could see myself.
I love that, right? I'm not making this up. That macro level work, all you need is a bachelor's degree, 2 years of relevant local level experience and some passion. But in your case, also passion and or lived experience. Macro employers love lived experience. Okay, so what's the biggest issue you're having in your career right now? Some that maybe you told me, but repeat it again
For
for me.
searching for macro level jobs, right?
Okay, so that's your biggest issue right now.
But was that the context of the question?
What is it? I don't know. What is your biggest issue right now? Is it searching for the jobs?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah,
Okay, that's the one you want to tackle today?
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
So,
like from the times that I was in, like the 3 day retreat and like just the the number of Zoom sessions that you invited me to, I do I did take away some of the tips that you gave me as far as you know researching initiatives and organizations and speaking with the CEOs of different initiatives and whatnot. Um, and yeah, just getting away from the doer type of role. So that's what stuck to me during even our get to know you chats too.
Well, I would say that you have an advantage, right? Macro level jobs are largely remote. However, the state of California is a heavy hitter when it comes to macro level jobs, specifically for youth and young adults. Like, I love the work they do in that state. So, in order to find macro organizations, I would first encourage you to create a short list of 10 to 20 keywords. A lot of these keywords you already have in your mission statement that you created during the 3-day career planning retreat. You would just pull it out of there. But if not, I can help you brainstorm some keywords. I have actual strategies and techniques that I teach my coaching clients. I call it the breadcrumb methods, but like I'll sum it up real quick for the sake of this conversation. You use the keywords. This is why I had you all do the 3 P's framework first, create the mission statement, because all of that helps you find the jobs. So you pull out some of your keywords and you start doing searches using those words, right? Because remember, the words that you all were using, yes, a lot of them, because we didn't have a full 30 days to go through this process. So some of them may be micro focused, but for the most part, a lot of you all got your mission statement to the point where they were macro level terms. And you will start doing some searches. You will start looking through scholarly articles. You can do a simple search and do some Google Scholar search, do some Google searches on national organizations that do work around youth and housing, youth and houselessness. I would even take out the youth piece and just say housing insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Because from there, you're going to get a mass return of national organizations. Brookings is an organization that does research around housing access for people and
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing. And what you're going to see when you do that search for just housing insecurity or affordable housing is that how they all do their work is very different. They're going to be focused on different aspects. So if you're crystal clear that you specifically are interested around doing it for youth, you need to really hone in on the ones that are doing it for youth and getting clear around how are they doing it specifically. Like, are they talking to builders? There are national organizations out there that are working directly with housing builders to get them to create like these what do they call it, reserve of affordable housing. Like, for every regular housing subdivision you build, can you also build 5 units that will be designated for affordable housing people? So you would need to get a good understanding of how this work is being done. And then based on the organizations that you found and that you say, this is how I want to do the work, you then target them jobs. But it's not done by just, and I'm not saying you did this, this is for people watching it live and watching the replay. Job searching is not done by just going to a job board and typing in housing. It requires you to do a level of research to refine even more, like what type of housing jobs you're looking for. And then I pose the same question to you that I gave Aisha. What do you feel is the quickest conduit for change? Because that will also determine the type of art organizations you target. Are you wanting to talk to housing builders? I honestly think that you want to be somewhere talking to the political leaders because you like to be in that space, talking to the legislation, talking to those leaders and helping them understand the importance of allocating funding for
Yeah,
this.
that's 100. That's for sure. I'd much rather sit at a table with key stakeholders and advocating for these grants instead of trying to come up with a reason on why we need to deserve these grants every single year and write the same narrative and then get turned down, all to write the same thing all over again and then submit it again. Nah, I'd rather be at this table at this point.
Correct. So
Put
then
me on the table.
there are national organizations, think tanks, right? There's a multitude of different macro organization types. Again, for the sake of people watching, I can't get into it as a whole list, but one of the types that I can tell you is think tanks. There are think tanks out there that work with just mayors of cities. That was a think tank that I worked with. Where all we did was talk to mayors. Then there's another national think tank where all they do is talk to governors. But you have to get clear on who is the audience that you feel is responsible for this. So if you're saying that you really want to be pushing for the allocation of legacy funding towards this issue, it may be the governors. So in that instance, you need to find the national organizations that talk to governors about all of the issues that impact the people that live in their states. And one of those organizations is called the National Governors Association. Right? But you have to go find the organizations based off of who you say your key stakeholder group is. So I'm gonna stop there and see what questions you have. Okay, you give me a thumbs up. Okay, Henry, no. Henry is using the language too. What?
It's like yeah, I'm letting the marinate.
Okay. So most definitely, Henry, I want you to stay focused on the political advocacy, technical assistance aspect, because that's your scene. Every
Yeah.
time I talk to you, you're talking about something at the Capitol, something at the city, something you're talking to the political leaders. That's your lane.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. Like my program's gonna get audited next Friday. Well, originally it's gonna be tomorrow, and then and then I found out that I got pushed by next week. I was like, all right, cool. But I'm over here like, man, I'd rather be the auditor at this point. So
Okay.
this is I'm like, man, so yeah, it's because like even with just like the last 30 days that's been um going on at work and whatnot. Like, we've been having to educate folks, the recipients in our agency about the federal funding freezes and that this not only impacts you, but this is a nationwide problem
Mhm.
and stuff. So I've been, long story short, to condensialize it, I've been collecting my clients' Medi-Cal cards and their children's so I can get them connected to Cal AIM, since there are housing resources through medical programs, since our housing dollars are starting to become limited now, and we're not going to know and until, because it's an everyday update on these types of global policies that's going on, right? So I'm slowly and gradually getting my clients to see like, oh, this is some real shit that's happening here, like, like this, like, because there's already a lot of shelters that's closing their doors, a lot of affordable housing projects that put on pause because of this big freeze that's going on, and it really impacts like just from the top to the bottom. And so yeah, it's been interesting, sort to speak. And
So
yeah.
that's another. So again, and I said this earlier, but I'm gonna say it to you too. I said it to Aisha. Also look at the other systems that are impacting your people. So to hear you talk about their healthcare insurance programs that are providing housing for people, I'm sure as a way to ensure continuity of care, to ensure that their insurance costs aren't sky high because the people don't have somewhere to live and to get the treatment. You could target the health insurance companies because they have governmental liaison positions as well. One of my coaching clients Nicola, she was in cohort like 3. She landed a macro job with a health insurance company where that's what she does on a national level. She travels the states and she talks to the political leaders about the importance of affordable health insurance and how her health insurance company is how they're doing that work well. But also something else you said too around like you wouldn't mind being on the review board. I forget the term you call the people that came into your organization. That's where you
Yeah.
work on like, yeah, work on doing some self-reflection work around. Do you want to be out advocating for these changes, or do you want to be providing programmatic oversight, working as a watchdog to ensure that these organizations are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing? Because those are 2 different types of roles. But you're on to something.
I mean, so I'm down to be a watchdog. Why
Okay.
not?
So then,
I'm down to be a watchdog. Shit.
so then
What,
with
what's
watchdog, then you need to be targeting a regulatory entity. So when those people came to your job and you were made aware of it, which I'm sure you knew about it before, you need to be on their job board looking for a job.
yeah.
So that's another breadcrumb method I teach my coaching clients is that when you come across someone that's doing work that you would potentially like to do, or you hear them talking about the issue, the way that you talk about it, yeah, you're listening to it, but you also should be stopping what you're doing, pulling out your phone and researching where do they work. Because if they're talking about your thing, in the same way that you're talking about it, that means they work for an organization that does the work that you really want to do. So you should be following the breadcrumbs, that's what I call it, to go find a job.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's job searching. That's only 2 of my job search strategies and techniques. You do some Google Scholar searches, learn how the people are talking about it. But then you also, when you come across these people at workshops, webinars, conferences, conventions, go look up where they work. All right, Henry, was this helpful? I see you deep in thought, like,
Yeah,
oh,
this is no, this is cool.
okay, good. So I'm thinking at this point, you're very clear that you want to be watchdog adjacent, because I'm even going to classify the political level like liaison work as that as well, because you want to advocate for the permanent like allocation of this funding for housing. I think that's a great place because you keep talking about that. All right.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes, well, even with your what you call it, your 3-day retreat, like I did been taking some time to think about what do I like to do outside of work, like what do I what who is Hen outside of work? Like my coworkers don't know who I am outside of work, so like like arts and whatnot, like and 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 like my things that I like to do, like on my hobby and stuff, like cooking, dancing, whatever. Like I was like, man, like it's been having me on the days when I'm burnt out. That's that extra fire that I need. You know what I mean? So I have been thinking a lot about what you've been telling me on that spectrum with using what I love to do. It's not even work related, just trying to use what I love to do and getting them to marry. But I have a hard time with getting them to marry.
How you get
So
married, or how you get them to marry in a short response is you have to find the people who are most receptive to talk about the issue that you're passionate about, get the job. And then when you get in the job, you talk to them about, yeah, when we're dealing with youth and young adults, we should also be talking about the infusion of arts and creative expression and how over time that will help them with their social emotional learning. Right. Your role as a macro social worker is not to look for a ready-made position. What I mean by that is we're not looking for political liaison of arts youth development programs. We're not looking for that. That doesn't exist, right? If it existed, then the problem wouldn't be there. As a macro social worker, is your job, and I told you all this is for people watching. Your job is to think outside of the box and fill the gaps. And in order to do that, you have to find your stealthy way into a system that is at least open already to talk about your thing. They're already working on that. And then once you come in, you start infusing your suggestions. Hey, did you also know that like this type of approach really helps to ensure that youth are feeling fully integrated into their new communities, and it helps them stay in permanent housing longer because they have a community that's centered around the arts and build and belonging. I'm making this up.
Okay. So you
You bring
use
it to the
so
table.
you use the housing as to get in the door.
Exactly.
And then you're gonna have a conversation at the dinner table.
Exactly. And in order to get in the door, you got to make certain you targeting the right house. For me, workforce development, technically, I shouldn't be in the workforce development system talking to employers. I should be in the system with economists. They are the ones that do work around good quality, good paying jobs for people and economic self-sufficiency. But I didn't want to go into that system because they do research. They have
Yeah.
hypothesized, they look at the data. I wanted to go where the people had the power and authority to create the jobs. So what that is, where that is the workforce development system that works on behalf of employers. So that system, they just talk about how can we get talent for employers. So I penetrate that system. And when I'm in the system, every meeting that I had in DC, the meetings I had in my policy job, my question is, how does this, what are the implications of this for the actual workers when it comes down to long-term permanent employment? What are the wages looking like? I'm talking about my thing. Then on top of that, I'm talking about my population. Did you also know that there's a whole subpopulation of pregnant and parenting youth and young adults who are disengaged from the education and employment system? We should also look around, like look into allocating some funding or doing some work specifically for the disengaged youth.
Mm,
Your job to come in and talk about the people that ain't being talked about.
damn.
All
So
right.
all my youth is disengaged for sure.
Yes. So you need to get in the room where they're talking about housing, and then you bring up your disengaged youth. You're not
Well,
gonna find a ready-made position.
when you was like when you were kicking down these doors and stuff, and like really pushing for like your mission and stuff, what were you being careful of like what you didn't want to do? Like, I don't know, I'm just making this up too, because like you and I both could freestyle.
Mhm.
Like Marthea, I'm not trying to do no paperwork. I'm not trying to do no grant writing. I'm not trying to do no data analysis. I don't want to do none of that. But so how are you able to advocate for the things that you want while at the same time not taking the things that you don't want that comes with it or
Because
that may come with it?
because in phase one of my process, the clarity phase, you also in that phase create your list of non-negotiables. A
Right, 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 right.
non-negotiable of mine is I don't want to be directly responsible for like the tedious management of funding. I'm co-manage the $2.5 million initiative in DC. However, I don't want to be like acting like a bookkeeper and processing invoices and doing all of the other stuff that you have to do in case management. I did that as a program coordinator and DV shelter. I don't want to do that. So that was one of my non-negotiables. I don't want to work in an organization where the senior leadership is not diverse. Why? Because I know when
Mm,
it comes to youth and young adults and employment, they look like many different people. I want to work with some
mm,
people that represent the people that we're serving.
yeah.
So in my searching of these jobs and what I call my mission fit alignment check, when I'm conducting my mission fit alignment check, before I even look at the jobs, before I even get my hopes up, I'm looking at the org chart. What do the people look like? What's their background? Where did they work? Oh, they really are bought into this work. They either have lived experience or they worked in the program that I worked in, the same type of program I worked in on the front lines. I worked there. See, that's the thing. Everybody want to jump to now you done got me warmed up. Okay, so buckle in. That's the thing. A lot of people jump to the resume writing. It's a whole bunch of other stuff you gotta do. This is how you end up in jobs that you hate, in organizations where you have no buy-in to what they're doing because you haven't, not you, Henry, you haven't done the preliminary work. What are you looking for? That's clarity. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things you need? This is way more than a remote job. I need
Yeah.
a diverse leadership. I need to also know that they have a big, robust budget. Why? Not because it's to pay me, because I know I'm going to get paid. It's because do you have enough funding to support the work the way that I'm envisioning? Not saying I'm going to use up every dollar, but I don't want to be like I was in that workforce development center and that nonprofit, my two case management jobs, where you telling me you only got $5,000 for the year and pull miracles out of the sky for my participants.
So
No,
did you just not look at nonprofits altogether because
no,
you knew
I didn't look
that
at that. I look at
not-
financials because I look at their financials, and this is what I teach my coaching clients, especially now in the height of what's changing in the world. I'm teaching my coaching clients how to look at the financial reports. How much money do they have coming in for your initiative? Or is it a mix of governmental contracts? We don't want to focus on that because we know they're getting cut. How are they funded? I look at all of those things. Even as
So
a
it's safe to
case,
say, do not look at nonprofit organizations.
yeah, they are under scrutiny because there are a lot of macro organizations that don't receive any governmental funding. I have one of my coaching clients, she recently found a macro organization that they say they have over $5 billion that they have to spend down in the next several years, and none of it is governmental grant money,
Yeah,
money from private donors. There's a lot of
yeah,
organizations like that. So yeah, you got to create your list of non-negotiables.
yeah. What intrigued me about your content too was that sometimes I found myself because I'm dealing directly with folks who um are in a very heightened emotional state all the time. Sometimes I found myself susceptible to inheriting some of their symptoms. It's very similar to like if you were to work at a DV shelter and you see someone coming in just in frantic all the time, and then at time, and I was even just at work one day, and I just like was reading some articles, and then I found myself, I was like, damn, I have inherited what's the terminology? Secondary trauma or something like that, where it's like it has social workers feeling what is it? Compassion fatigue. So and it's not because I can't empathize with you right now. It's just because I'm so used to this that it's like your story is not new to me, and it may strike as to some clients as like, oh, like he's a robot or something, but that like it's not you, it's me. So I was like, yeah, maybe if I get away from the direct face to face work and do macro work, I don't have to be in this state of mind. But
Yeah,
even though the macro has its own battles, but yeah.
yeah, most definitely. I just sent an email out about that around like when you are a clear macro social worker, you know because you operate and think differently than the other people in your organization. And if you stay in the wrong environment long enough, you will burn out. You will become defeated because you're not in the right place. However, what I tell my coaching clients is when you find your people in a macro organization, I promise you, it's like you found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I never forget my Washington D.C. job when I interviewed with my supervisor. And he was just as passionate about the thing with youth and young adults because he's from Kentucky, the hills of Kentucky, and he saw like how mining and the lack of jobs really affected youth and young adults. And then I'm bringing my experience from the south side of Tallahassee, the poorest zip code in Florida, and he's just as talking and passionate about the thing just like me. It's unbeatable, right? And then we're tag teaming when we're talking to these political leaders. I was in my place. But when I was on the front lines in the Workforce Development Center, and I'm saying, I'm asking all of the questions and the people looking at me, and I got a target on my back. If you ain't strong enough, it will take you down. And that's dangerous. You don't want it to be like that, where you become desensitized to it because you feel defeated. It's like, it is what it is. But we're gonna wrap it up because me and Henry can talk for hours. But
You a country girl, I'm a city boy.
I'm from the city, Henry, but that's my second home.
Oh, okay.
Palm Beach
All
County,
right.
Florida, but that's my second home. But yeah, like that's the thing. You in the wrong environment. That's why you have to have a career plan, because if you stay there too long, they're gonna make you just like them. And you're not meant to be like them. That's why these things are popping out to you, and everybody else like, what do you mean, Harry? It ain't a problem. Things are going well. You think differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need everybody on every level. But if you continue to make yourself small to come, like, just get along, which Henry doesn't do this. I'm talking to everybody. But if you like play the game of I'm just gonna go along and get along, I don't want the target on my back. Don't do it to yourself, right? I'm telling you, the people couldn't stand to see me coming. My case management job, they could not stand to see me coming because I had a question about something. Oh, here comes Miss Pitts. Yeah, I got a question. What's going on? What are we doing? Right? But it comes to a point though where you have to realize that how long you gonna keep asking the same questions? I can only talk about something one time before it's time for me to move on to do action. Right. So it's opportunities out there. All right. Thank you, Henry, so much. I do see that someone has a question in the live chat. Stanley, I'll come on after I end the live and respond to your question for the sake of time. But for those who I came in to watch these live coaching sessions, oh, look at y'all. I'm so excited that you decided to dedicate some time to your career on a Thursday night. As you see that when it comes to getting macro jobs, it's more than just resume writing, it's more than just saying you want a remote job. There's some other things, some other processes, and I broke those down tonight for you that you have to get clear on. You have to get clear on. And you also have to get clear on like what types of organizations you want to align yourself with. You're welcome, Stanley. So if you're interested in working with me right now, Cohort 18 enrollment is open for the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator. It will close on Saturday night. Visit macroandpaid.com, schedule a get to know you chat with me to talk about coming inside of the accelerator. My calendar is at macroandpaid.com. The link is in the comment box, the description box. It costs you nothing to come talk to me. I just want to hear about what your current needs are, what your current challenges are to get macro jobs, and we can see if we're a good fit. What I'll talk to you about is the program design, the price, the payment plan options, the different financing options, and then next steps. The minute you register, you get access to my full curriculum and you can start working. I have coaching clients that started getting their first macro interview within 30 to 45 days of being inside of the accelerator. We kick off with our first official call on this Sunday. We work, right? So you sign up and then you start working on Sunday. But if you're interested, visit macroandpaid.com and schedule a get to know you chat with me. It's just a conversation. I don't do guerrilla sales where I'm like, you got to pay me before you get out this Zoom. No, it's just a conversation. I give you the information you need to go do your due diligence and make the decision that's for you. All right. So happy macro career planning. Good night. Hold on a second, Asia and Aisha and Henry. One moment.